Chapter 7. We moved from synergy class to lunch, where we accepted the nourishment and additional light it gave us. Then the majority of us headed to the Gabriel building for Intro to Emotions. Master Cassiel turned from the white screen and faced us as we settled into our seats. He didn't give us any time to pull out our agendas before launching into the class curriculum. We've spent the past 2 weeks discussing the different emotions humans feel. While it's important to recognize emotional output in humans before we can understand and analyze these emotions, we need to figure them out in ourselves. I've written a list of emotions on the board. These are considered first-layer emotions, and people often use them to mask something deeper. Study them for a moment and decide which one comes closest to how you feel right now. I read through the list on the board. Angry, happy, tired, energetic, sad, lonely, bored, excited. Did you find one that fits for you? Cassiel asked. He made eye contact with each student. I tilted my head, considering. If I had to pick one, it would be bored. I nodded when his eye caught mine. Good. Write down in a new document what you feel. Then go through the other emotions and write down the last time you remember feeling them. I opened to a new screen on my agenda and wrote, bored. That is what I feel right now. Then I glanced back at the board and started down the list of feelings. Angry. Not too difficult. My mind seized upon the moment in Sheol when Hasatan betrayed me. My fury had enabled me to trap his demons and save Ablis. I scribbled the words down, covering my agenda in case anyone should happen to look over. Only Ablis and Malik knew what had happened down there, and I intended to keep it that way. Happy. Also easy. Every night at Shema, I felt unending joy, though never as radically as that first time. Tired. I felt tired when I expended energy. I hadn't yet learned mind over soul, and my body let me down every time I tried to open that window. Energetic after Shema and after I ate, and every time I saw Malik. How could the presence of another being affect me as directly as nourishment? I paused as I considered sadness. I didn't feel that emotion as often as I had before. It had lingered around me my entire first year, worsening when I realized I wanted to be a guardian in truth, and yet I was sworn to betray my friends and deliver the dagger to Hasatan. Lonely, I felt that one every day. Every moment, I longed to have Malik near me. Excited. This one gave me pause. What excited me? When was the last time I felt that way? I wasn't sure I ever had. I could recognize the emotion in other beings, but myself? Cassiel waited a few moments and then he spoke again. These emotions are just as easily identified in yourself as in other people if you're being analytical. Each emotion has an associating color, and many of you have the ability to see it on your peers. Is there a way to prevent that? Vanina asked. I kind of hate that I literally wear my feelings on my sleeve. Cassiel nodded. One thing you'll be learning in here, besides how to read emotions, is how to mask your aura so you're not broadcasting your feelings to your classmates at every moment. I nodded in understanding. That explained why I never saw the auras of the master angels and less frequently of the higher-level students. The next set of emotions are harder. We call them second-layer emotions. Sometimes they masquerade as a first-layer emotion, and you have to dig deeper to know what's actually being felt. As a guardian, the sooner you know what emotion your assignment is feeling, the more prepared you'll be to help them deal with it. He turned and wrote on the board: ecstasy, depression, aggression, rage, despair, fear, love, distress, nervousness, anxiety, passion, surprise, disgust, contempt. He faced us again. Write down which of these emotions you have felt in the last week, and one sentence describing the situation. I studied them more intently this time, checking off each one as I went. Ecstasy, no. Depression, no. Aggression, no. Rage, no. I finally got a yes at surprise and wrote down, the first time I went to Shema, the height of emotions surprised me. Cassiel wandered the classroom, surveying our responses. Now, he said, returning to the front of the room, think back to your earth life. Think hard, to the day before you died. Picture that day, from the moment you woke up to the moment you went to bed. Write down which of these emotions you remember feeling throughout that day. Well, heaven's throne, that left me out. I bent over my screen, pretending to be thinking while spying on my classmates. Iblis scribbled away, as did Jeremiel beside her and Dara to my left. When you're done with that, compare the emotions you felt as a human to the emotions you've felt this past week as an angel. What do you see? Arella raised her hand. I felt a lot more as a human. In one day, I ran the gamut from ecstatic to depressed to passionate. Murmurs of agreement echoed in the room, and Cassiel nodded. That is what I wanted to show you. It's easy to forget as angels the depth and range of emotions that humans feel. You can't forget. When you're on Earth helping an assignment, you can't lose the ability to understand depression or anxiety. You can't forget what it felt like to despair. You must be empathetic to their needs. Lakey raised his hand. Do we not feel things as strongly now as angels? Great question, and the answer is no. We still feel just as strongly. However, Arcadia is a place of peace and acceptance. The stimuli for intense emotions is missing. You have an eternal perspective now, instead of thinking your entire life revolves around one day. We also learn throughout the rest of this existence how to control our feelings instead of letting them control us. Cassiel went on to talk about different ways to interpret emotions, but my mind was tripping over a problem, one that hadn't occurred to me until now. Chances were it hadn't occurred to anyone because I was a new case. I had never experienced this wide range of emotions. I couldn't relate. How could I be empathetic to something I'd never felt? The issue of not having experienced human emotions grew in me until it became an obsession. I studied my classmates' auras, noting the color differences from hour to hour and wondering how much more varied their auras would have been on Earth. It was during flying class that the solution came to me. Just a reminder about the first Skyball game this Friday after classes, Master Sabriel said. This opening game is third years versus fourth years, and I hope you'll show up to support your teammates. Now let's practice your flying skills. Maybe some of you will be on my team next year. She guided us through the next exercise. We stood on 3-foot-high boxes, flapping our wings as we leapt off, trying to create enough lift from the motion to carry us into the air before we landed. And I was failing magnificently, barely managing to keep my wings flapping as I jumped. Over and over again, I leapt off the box, stumbling to get my feet under me each time as my wings closed behind me, refusing to cooperate. I needed to go to Earth. I fell from the box before I jumped, toppling sideways in the grass. Master Sabriel paused in front of me. Why don't you practice controlling your wings a little more? We can add the jumping later. Yes, I said, climbing back on my box, barely hearing her. It was essential. I couldn't learn these feelings if I didn't go to Earth. It was a valid argument. There was even a chance the masters would let me, if I could just figure out how. Keep your goal in mind, Barakiel said to me. I had come to Synergy class intent on speaking with the Elder Master, but as soon as he'd said we were working on Windows again, my desire vanished. I wanted to see Malik. No, I needed to see him. Barachiel had already circled around the students once and come back to me, and I held my back straight, focusing on the issue at hand. I would create a window. Remember what you want, he said. Nothing is going to stop you. And nothing, I breathed. The pinprick appeared, and I continued to pour my power into it. I pictured his face in my mind, those golden brown eyes. I needed to feel the connection between us. My hand wavered, already tiring from the energy it took to get this far. I pulled in more, sucking it from the ground at my feet, careful not to destroy any life as I took energy from the grass. I watched the opening grow, size of a small ball, swirling colors around the perimeter. I had gotten this far last time. I could get further this time. Don't give up until you get what you want. The window opened a little more, and a flush of victory filled my chest. My body trembled, wanting to give out. No, you don't, I told it. Just a little more, if I could get just a little more energy. My wings. Sometimes I forgot the energy they stored, ready for me to access and use. My mind flew to the river of energy flowing through my powerful black wings. I pulled from it, hauling it from the back of my wings up to my fingers. The spear grew wider, until it opened in front of me, a perfect window to Earth, a channel to what I wanted. Good job, Barakiel said, moving on. I hardly noticed him, because there was Malik. He stood in a dry field, beside a group of men, no, boys, harvesting crops, long, knobby canes they hacked up from the ground. Their skinny bodies glistened with sweat from the hot sun, baking their bare skin. Malik's mentor stood near him, speaking to him, though I couldn't hear the words. I must not have opened the window correctly. One of the boys stopped his harvest, resting his head on his scythe, his body giving a great shiver. Malik placed his hand on the shoulder of the boy, and I saw the light strengthen between them at his touch. The boy straightened up, wiped the sweat from his brow, and returned to harvesting, dropping the long canes into a wheelbarrow beside him. Malik dropped his hand and followed the harvesters as they continued down the row. "Bilivik," I murmured, wishing I could reach down and touch him. Could he see me? If I called to him, would he hear me and look up, see me here? It's a window, Elder Master Barakiel said, approaching from my left. I scowled at him. You were reading my thoughts. I wasn't. Angels can't do that. Only the Father knows our thoughts. Oh, I said, surprised at the revelation. Then how did you know? You were practically shouting your desires. Your aura speaks for you. I couldn't help overhearing. I'm sure, I said dryly. It's a one-way conduit, he said, gesturing again at my window. Only portals are two ways. Can I open a portal just for communication? I asked. Am I allowed to travel through one? There are regulations and instructions involving travel between realms. Generally speaking, you can't open a portal without another angel's involvement. Elder Master Barakiel turned away from me and addressed the rest of the class. If you succeeded in opening a window, please close it, he called. We will continue to work on this until you've mastered it. Until then, if you wish to have a viewing, please let myself or Master Sellafiel know. We will help you create your window. I closed my window down and picked up my agenda from the grass where I'd left it. Coming, Jez? Dara asked, stepping past me with Iblis. I nodded at the group of students hanging around Elder Master Barakiel. I have a few questions. I'll catch up to you guys later. Sounds good. They waved and scurried away, pausing to let Arella and Israfil join them. Yes, Jeramiel? Barakiel asked, turning to the light-hailed angel. What's your question? So we can create these windows anytime we wish? His tone was inquisitive and respectful, very different than the derisive voice he used when discussing things related to the academy. That's right, but I caution you not to open them too often. You don't want to get stuck living life through those left on Earth, not when you have so much life to live here. Will I get faster at opening them? Of course. Like anything you do, the more you practice, the better you'll get. And the way to open a portal is the same principle? But was it my imagination, or did Barakiel sound more guarded this time? Jeremiel smiled. Thanks. I'll be practicing my window creating. Gonna get good at this. Good luck, Jeremiel, Barakiel said. Jeremiel caught my eye and gave a head bob, then walked toward the main campus. Yef, Jez, what is it? I looked away from Jeremiel and toward Barakiel. I couldn't hear them. The last time I watched a viewing, I could hear the conversations. Why couldn't I this time? The conduit wasn't fully formed. It's a matter of skill. The more you practice and the better you get at this, the more clear the picture. You'll be able to pick up on the words of the people you wish to hear, fine-tune the image and sound you get. I nodded. It made sense. Is there something else? Well, you voice it. I hesitated. In our emotions class the other day, Master Cassiel talked about remembering the various emotions we felt as humans, the intensity and depth of some of them. He mentioned it because, as angels, we don't feel the same gamut of emotions. I paused. I've never felt those feelings. I don't know what they are. I'm not sure how I'll be able to relate to an assignment if I've never experienced what they're going through. Barachiel studied me, and I lowered my gaze, worrying somehow that he would see into my heart through my eyes. While everything I said was true, there was a part of me hoping I could accomplish another task this way. Maybe, just maybe, they would decide I needed a body. I have an idea, Barakiel said. Come with me. He led me back to the administration building, down the hall, past his office, and to the office at the opposite end of the hall. He knocked, and Master Sellafiel opened the door. Sellafiel, he said, I need to confer with you on something concerning Jezbathasat. Her eyes darted to my face before returning to him. Please, come in. We stepped into her office, and I took in the surroundings while she closed the door. I'd been in here once before, but I'd been so shell-shocked with having just arrived on campus that I didn't recall much about it. Now I noticed the soft orange pillows and cushions on every chair, the fluffy couch in the corner, Her office was completely different from Barakiel's. "Have a seat," she said, gesturing toward the couch and cushions. I did, sinking into a wide armchair and clasping the orange pillow. My wings folded up behind me, content to provide an extra layer between me and the back of the chair. Barakiel seated himself in a straight-backed hard chair near her desk. Jez and I were just speaking about her lack of human experience and how that might interfere with her ability to be an adequate guardian. Explain. Team has no understanding of complex human emotions. She will have no way to relate to her assignment when the assignment goes through bouts of depression or love or ecstasy. Sellafiel turned and examined me. "You've never experienced depression?" I shook my head, my cheeks warming. "Not me. I've seen it in humans." I left it at that, not wanting to spell out that I'd fed off it and encouraged it. I knew how to manipulate human emotions so they felt despair and hopelessness. "Is never experienced love." Barakiel said the word softly, as if afraid they might wound me. But they didn't. What purpose did love serve? I knew happiness and friendship and contentment. No? Sellafiel lifted a brow. Without this understanding, she won't be able to have empathy for her assignments. She might not be able to have compassion, but instead may feel disdainful toward them, wondering why they react as illogically as they do. She won't be able to help them if she thinks they are fumbling idiots. I wouldn't feel that way, would I? It was how I'd considered humans before, as an inferior race ruled by primitive, weak feelings. But I saw them differently now. Now I wanted to be one of them. What do you suggest? I have an idea, but I want to take it to Michael to discuss. What's your idea? Barakiel glanced at me once before saying, I want to send her to Earth. Chapter 8. Barakiel and Sellafiel did not make a decision with me there in her office. They sent me off to math class, where I wrote down formulas and plugged in numbers without thinking. We were moving past algebra into space mechanics and quantum physics, but my mind wasn't in the numbers. Send me to Earth. It was what I'd been hoping, but was it possible? Would they really? A feeling I couldn't define raced through me as I replayed the conversation. It left me tingly and breathless inside, much like excitement, but also riddled with something else. The closest thing I could come up with was fear. Fear of what? Fear of going? Or fear of not going? I desperately wanted to talk to Malik. My classmates discussed the upcoming skyball game at dinner, but I didn't hear most of what they said around me. I tried to imagine how going to Earth would happen. Would I be given a new body? Or someone else's? I had to be able to remember everything that happened on Earth and everything from Arcadia, or there wasn't any point in me going. I didn't want to start over, but to be able to touch Dot, I quivered with anticipation. After dinner, my classmates stood as one and headed toward the skyball pitch, but I moved toward the library. You're not coming to the game? Dara asked, stopping me. I shook my head. I needed to do some research. I needed to find out if it had been done before. Had a renegade ever changed their mind and been sent to Earth? Oh, come on, Abaddon said. Just because we know the fourth years are going to win doesn't mean we don't watch the game. He winked. His comment caught me off guard. How do you know the fourth years will win? They always win the opening game, Grigori said. It's a given. I pondered that, like, it's part of the plan, it can't be changed. Grigori and Abaddon both laughed. Like that, Grigori said. It's not foreordained or anything like that. But the fourth years have been playing a year longer than the third years. They're just better. Pieces of their words fit together for me, forming a collective thought. So sometimes the future plays out according to the Father's plan, and sometimes it plays out according to how well we've prepared. Iblis tugged on my wing. Everything is so profound when it comes to you, isn't it? I was still thinking it through. The only way we can know for sure if we're on the right path is if we prepare. Well, Iblis shrugged. Next year I'm making the skyball team, and my team will beat the fourth years. You better start preparing, I said in all seriousness, but my classmates only laughed. Deep words, Grigori said. I shall take them to heart. Abaddon's agenda dinged and he pulled it out, then scowled. You'll have to watch the game without me. Looks like I'm being called to Earth to minister. Good luck, Grigori said, and they shook hands. See you when you get back. We watched Abaddon walk away in silence. This was how it went. The third years were here one moment and gone the next. And Malik still hadn't returned. I turned away from my classmates. I'll be in the library. What are you preparing for? Jerahmeel asked. Life on Earth. But I kept that to myself and answered with a shrug. We'll let you know how the game goes, Iblis said, slipping her hand into his. Grigori smirked. Even though we already know how it will go. I spent the next 2 hours in the library, but every search ended in a dead end, and every circumstance ended in a flat no. There was no record of any renegade getting a second chance, no record of a Temptary gaining a body and going to Earth. Grigori messaged me when the game ended, the 4th year's won. Maybe some things were not meant to be? Iblis and I were back in our dorm getting ready for Shema when a knock came on the door. We both glanced at each other. Jerahmeel? I asked. Shouldn't be. He's meeting me at the fountain. Her cheeks didn't even turn pink. She was getting closer to admitting they were together. She stepped to the door and opened it. Malik, she gave him a tight hug, and I felt a flash of jealousy as she stepped back. I was just going out. She stepped out and closed the door behind her, and Malik crossed the room to me in 2 strides. Yes, he said, his light expanding and folding around me. It almost felt like his arms wrapping around me. Almost. You were gone 2 weeks, I said. I thought it would be a day or 2. Since shades of light are rare, I ended up on 3 ministering assignments while I was on Earth. Not that I want to complain, I said. I'm so happy you're back. And Raphael told me, I'm using my influence too much. I have to let people make their choices on their own. Makes sense, it's why Hassatan's plan was rejected. Yes, but I understand him a lot better now. Malik sank onto my bed. I want to stand right next to each mortal and make sure they choose correctly. Force them to do it if necessary. I joined him, sitting beside him. I couldn't see his aura, but the tangible connection built between us, sending a little flicker of warmth into my navel. So Raphael sent you back here? And I'll be back more often. He only wants me to visit Earth every few weeks. Malik's wings opened and closed, distress on his features. I can't be so involved with humanity. Raphael said this is how it always is. Guardians have to learn to be hands-off. Well, I've got news. I took a deep breath, then said, They're thinking about sending me to Earth. He turned to face me. What? These feelings you have for the humans, it's because you understand them. You know what they're going through. Well, I don't have any Earth experience. I won't be able to efficiently help my assignment. So Barakiel is going to talk to Michael about sending me to Earth. I squeezed my hands together, identifying the emotion flying through my veins as excitement. Isn't it great? I don't understand how it's possible. Malik didn't sound so excited. You would be born, but then it would take you at least 14 human years to, and then you'd have to die. He shook his head. I don't see how it would work. He brought up logistic points I hadn't thought of, but I refused to be discouraged. Malik, we could touch. I hovered my hand above his leg, moving from his knee to his upper thigh, feeling the crackling energy between us. He inhaled, not moving, his eyes on me. Wouldn't that be nice? Yes. Malik shifted to face me, his eyes darker than usual as he peered into mine. Maybe that's why it's a good thing we can't. I couldn't fathom his meaning. You hugged Iblis without a second thought. It's not fair that you can't touch me. Turn around. I turned, glancing at him over my shoulder. The way, so your back's to me. I obliged, sitting cross-legged on my bed and facing the wall. A moment later, I felt the touch of his hands along the arches of my wings, up over the hump and back down to the tips of my feathers. I hummed and closed my eyes, relishing the feel of his fingers as they stroked the soft down. You call this not touching? But I can't touch you, I said, and I ached to. How could I want something I'd never had so badly? Kerubiel. Malik's hands froze in their movement. What about Kerubiel? I heard the undertone in his voice, a current of negativity. I tried to discern the emotion, unhappiness for sure. Anger? Distrust? I regretted saying anything. Nothing. What about him? I was stuck now. He told me that when 2 physical bodies touch, when they come together, there's no better feeling in all the universe. Malik stood up so abruptly that a cold air rushed between us. Kerubiel's wrong. I turned around and pushed to my feet, rubbing my arms and trying to understand the tension between us. I wouldn't tell Malik what Karabil had made me feel, the desire he'd woken within me last year when he used his gifts to stroke my soul. But I couldn't hide it either. What happened between you two? I shook my head. Malik waited, and then he moved to the door. I wish she would stay away from him. He makes... I followed him as he opened the door. I understand, he makes me uneasy also. Something about him, Jez. It's like he takes all the self-control I've learned over the past 5 years and strips it away. Or maybe I'm just jealous. Malik leaned his forehead against the door, kicking at the bottom of it. I shouldn't feel that way. I should feel charity and brotherly love and mercy toward him. Instead, I feel angry. He pushed off the door into the hallway. I'm going to talk to Bear Kyle. I wanted to follow him, but I sensed he didn't want me along. The emotions he was feeling were too strong and too human. I couldn't understand them. But I knew I'd be able to if I could get to Earth. Malik wasn't at Shma. I didn't see him again until breakfast the next morning. He came up to me before I sat down with my tray and took the edge of my wing, his fingers separating the veins of one of my feathers and then pinching them back together. Sorry about last night, he said, brushing his face close to mine so our auras touched. Barakiel said it's always harder for us to deal with our own emotions after close contact with humans on Earth, especially because we're empathias. We tend to feel what they do. I turned toward him, holding my tray between us. I'm glad you're all right. I also talked to him about you going to Earth. I stiffened, suddenly wary. Malik hadn't reacted to the news like I had expected. Why? I just wanted to know if he had any details. He said not to worry. Malik seemed pleased with that, but what did it mean? Okay, I said uncertainly. He moved past me to the line, entering the serving area. We're just fine, Jez. We don't need anything more than this. He sounded so certain. I settled down at the table, tray in front of me, wondering why I felt anxious for more. The weight of eyes on me prickled my skin, and I lifted my face to the table opposite mine. I was not at all surprised to see Kerubiel sitting with the first years from the Emet dormitory, his eyes dark as they stared at me. I turned back to my yogurt and pretended not to see him. Malik and I went our separate ways after breakfast, with me heading to history and him going to his dance class, where he could touch other angels and I was expected to not care. I've gone over your homework from last week, Master Remiel said, his pen flashing as he wrote words across the board. If you check your agendas, you'll see my assessment of your work. I'm pleased to see so many of you taking this class seriously. I turned my screen on and flipped to my paper on the prophecy of the stars. I smiled to see Remiel had given me a top score. He'd also written in fancy lettering over the top, consider all angles. If the prophecy had not yet come true, what would it mean? In what ways could you interpret it as an unfulfilled prophecy? Remember that prophecies can have multiple meanings and be fulfilled in more than one way and more than once. An interesting thought. What would it mean if the prophecy remained to happen? Today we're going to study the beginning of life on Earth, Remiel said. The slow evolution of intelligence and the part Hasatan played in the creation of civilization. Hasatan played a part, I said, intrigued. I thought he just wreaked havoc and sent his Temptar to destroy mankind. Oh, did he? But let's look at this as a case of ifs and buts and could-have-beens. We'll start with this premise. If Hasatan had not tempted the first parents in the paradisiacal garden, then Gira dot. He looked at us, waiting for us to finish. I flipped through my history book, scanning the information I had on the garden and the first parents. Hasatan pretended to be a snake and convinced Eve to bite the fruit, forcing them to forever leave the realm of Eden. If he had not, they would still be there today, Daniel said, living in a state of innocence. Where would we be? Not here, Arella said. None of us would have been born, Israfil said. What are you saying? I asked, starting to piece together his words. That Hasatan's pretense was part of the plan? The plan for us to come to Earth and get bodies. Iblis said. The understanding hit me like a lightning bolt. Then, it backfired. Why'd it backfired? Master Remiel asked me. Hasatan's plan to beguile the first parents and lead them into damnation. Remiel turned around and went back to the board. What do we learn about the Father from the prophecies? That he wants to guide us, Arella said. Remiel wrote that down. That he can see the future, Iblis said. Muriel jotted that down also and waited, pen poised for another answer. He knows, I said. He already knows what's going to happen. Ah, Remiel said. He wrote that down also, then turned around and came back to us. Is that true? Does the father know everything that is going to happen? His question met with silence. I shifted in my seat, uncertain. Arella played with the edge of her desk, and Daniel frowned at his agenda. If he does, why doesn't he stop it? Jeremiel said. Free will, I said. He won't stop free will from playing out. Having lived most of my existence without free will, I understood the importance of this. But he intervened in Hasatan's actions, Idlis said. He saw what was going to happen and changed the outcome to his benefit. It's more like this, Remiel said. The father's plans cannot be thwarted. Anything someone does to try to alter them will be playing into the master plan. That goes for you and me and Hasatan and the renegades and the fallen. His words took me back to the moment last spring when I overheard Elder Master Barachiel talking about me in his office. He'd said something about how I was part of the plan, although, for better or worse, remained to be seen. Sometimes I wasn't sure myself. See, the weather began its slow descent into autumn, but I noticed the chill less than last year, as my thick black wings seemed to carry their own heat source. No more had been mentioned about me going to Earth, and I bid my time, though I was dying to ask. I walked with Jeremiel, Dara, and Iblis to dinner after trying again to make a window during energy class. My efforts hadn't produced a window bigger than a sky ball, but I didn't mind. I wasn't motivated anymore. The person I wanted to see was here with me, in Arcadia. And he found me before dinner, slipping his hand through my wings and stroking my veins. Guess what? He said, his voice ecstatic. Well then, I said, smiling at his enthusiasm. His emotions teased my aura, cajoling me to share his feelings. I got my assignment, he brandished a folder at me. You did? My eyes went wide and I felt a tumble in my stomach. I'd gotten used to his presence. He wouldn't leave for his assignment until the second semester, but he would be gone more often the rest of this semester, taking time to find out about his human and prepare himself for his guardianship. He let go of me and sat down on one of the benches, ringing the quad. He opened the folder and spread papers across his thighs. My assignment is just a boy, 17 years old, but he's at a crucial point in his life. In a few months, he'll be making a decision that will affect the rest of his life, maybe the rest of his eternity. And your job is to help him make the right decision? Malik bobbed his head. I'm trying to steer him in the right direction, so maybe the crucial point never happens. He needs more light in his life, and I was chosen as someone who can give that to him, but the Temtari are doing the same thing. Except they're working against me. What is the crucial thing? Malik met my eyes, hesitant. Giving his soul to a fallen. I nearly choked. He is considering becoming an underling? Underlings were humans who allowed fallen to feed off their souls. The resulting bargain gave the underling mystical powers, a shadow of the power a fallen had, but it also gave the fallen a semblance of mortality, a corporeal body through the underling, a way to interact with humans. The underling became a slave to the fallen's will. I have to find out more information, but right now it seems he's in the wrong crowd. Some kids who are getting involved with dark powers. They call it voodoo and black magic, but it's all the same. What happens if he gives himself to the fallen? It depends, but none of the outcomes are good. His choice could affect not just his own salvation, but those of his peers. Is this kid special somehow? Maybe are all special, Jez. I heard the rebuke in his voice but brushed it off. If that's the choice he makes, there's not much you can do about it, is there? The choice isn't made yet. I can keep him from this. Malik sounded so certain and my heart went out to him. If the boy's set on a certain path, I don't know that there's much you can do. Malik picked the papers up and stuffed them back in the envelope, but his motions felt agitated. Don't you get that I have to try? If I make a difference in one person's life, I've made a difference in his whole world. How do you not get that? His words stung, but they also took me back to my desire. I don't know what you're feeling. I don't understand. I don't know if I'm capable of understanding it. He stopped moving and looked at me, his eyes studying me. This is why you want to go to Earth? I nodded, hoping he understood me now. The only feelings I can relate to are pain and suffering, Malik, and my response has always been to deal with it. Just suck it up, he said. Yes, life was pain, life was agony. That was the mentality I'd been created with, and I had helped enforce it. I had caused deaths. I had lured the bodies and souls of men into sin and depravity with full intent so I could feed on their weakness and despair. I knew where the Temptare were coming from. If they succeeded in getting this boy to become an underling, not only would he be a puppet for the rest of his mortality, but the Temptare would feast on his tormented soul in Sheol after he died. He was a delicious prize. What is it? Malik asked. Sometimes I cursed our emotional connection. He felt the heaviness in my heart. What would he say if he knew all I'd done? You will succeed, I said, lifting my face up to look at him. The boy is lucky to have you as guardian. Malik's face softened and his hand came up to cut my face, a mere millimeter between his hand and my cheek. The space between us hummed and snapped. I wish I could kiss you, he said. Do it, my heart screamed. I didn't care what spiritual pain it brought me. I had survived Karubiel's forced kiss. I could survive Malik's. But I remembered how my soul had damaged him when he touched me. I could not allow that to happen. You can't, I said, looking down, sliding my face away from his hand. Besides, I shot him a flirtatious grin, masking the inner turmoil I felt. How can you be sure I'm not beguiling you to want me? He laughed and his hand moved to stroke the tips of my wings, but something passed through his eyes, something troubled, and I cursed myself for saying it. I didn't need him to wonder if I was capable of such a thing. Chapter 9. Malik stayed in Arcadia for the next few weeks, and I contented myself to his presence and tried not to think about the possibility of going to Earth. With the advent of the fall colors, I looked forward to being outside more, taking notice of things that had slipped past me last year. In some ways, it seemed my mind had been in a fog during my first year. How had I missed the reds and oranges as the trees lost their leaves? Creation class became one of my favorites. Our last class had been outside, working with colors to change the shades of the leaves and bushes as they prepared to be dormant for winter. It had been invigorating, but I'd missed being in the greenhouse. I smiled when Sabriel had us gather in the hot, humid building. This was where I preferred to be. Find your little garden, she said as we filed in. Check on your creations, nurture them, maybe add a new member to you plant family. She smiled like she'd said something clever. I wasn't that ambitious. I only had one plant in my garden, but it was growing and I didn't want to press my luck. Hello, little friend, I said, digging my fingers into the soil and feeling outward toward the root system spreading beneath the surface. Non-sentient or not, the plant recognized my presence. Its energy leaned toward me, tendrils soaking up the life I offered. My little bud had grown to the height of my calves, with branches covered in perfect, symmetrical leaves balancing across the bush. I pushed my life force into the soil, nourishing and providing for it. The leaves opened up toward me as if I were the sun itself. Kimbalah, offering light and energy. I gave it more energy, hoping it would be enough fuel to put a blossom or two on the bush. I wanted to see it bloom and bear fruit. A green leaf sprouted and unfurled, revealing a closed, pink bud beneath. One bud, one future bloom. I pulled my hand from the soil and stroked the delicate bud, amazed at the beauty and future life it held. And I'd had a part in its creation. You've done a good job with this little guy, Sabriel said, crouching beside me. Her loose baggy pants swept across the dirt, but it didn't cling to her, as if knowing she was the master gardener here. I'm pleased with my work, I said, as you should be. She stroked the little bud, and the leaves spun around as if seeking her. Light now instead of mine. You've learned how to nurture life. My book bag vibrated against my thigh and I glanced down at it. Master Sabriel rose and stepped away to encourage another student, and I pulled out my agenda. An incoming message flashed across my screen, silent because I was in class. My eyes scanned it and my heart skipped a beat. It was from Barakiel, and it asked me to come to the conference room immediately. I didn't wait for class to get out. I was so anxious. I excused myself and left. I didn't bother to explain and nobody questioned me. Free will had some definite perks. I quickly crossed the quad from the Azrael greenhouse to the MAB. I tried not to run once I got inside, hurrying down the hall to the conference room where Master Barakiel had asked me to meet him. I paused just outside the door, my hand poised to enter. The last time I'd sat in here, the masters had been deciding my fate at the academy, deciding whether I was worthy to continue on or not. I pushed the door open. Masters Salafiel, Barakiel, and Cassiel stood just inside, along with an angel I didn't recognize. He wore a suit over a trim figure with a keen-eyed face and a sharp chin. I could not see his wings, but everything about him screamed commander. I was certain he was an archangel. "Come sit, Jez," Barakiel said, offering a smile and pulling out a chair. "Jez," the other angel said, forming the word as if trying it out on his tongue. "Daughter of Hasatan." I clasped my fingers together and held them still in my lap. "Desbatasat, this is Archangel Michael, General of the Heavenly Hosts," Salafiel said. "Michael, would you care to have a seat?" This was Michael. A jolt went through me as I studied him. He was one of the greats, one of the most well-known archangels from the First War and the peace that came after. Of course. Michael pulled out a chair and sat, and only then did the other masters do so. "Jez, your instructors have brought an interesting request to me." I didn't dare look at Barakiel, but kept my gaze focused on Michael, on his stern eyes. He hadn't asked me a question, so I just nodded, waiting for more. He gave a slight smile. "They would like you to have the opportunity to go to Earth and experience life as a mortal." Now I could not withhold my gasp. I brought my hands to my mouth, concealing their trembling. "Will I whispered. He studied me longer this time. "Why do you want to?" My heart pounded in my chest, and I swallowed, searching for the proper words, feeling I had to say everything just right or I would lose this chance. "I want to understand human emotions. I want to know what it's like to feel such passion, such intensity. I've only experienced human life from the other side." I wanted to crawl under the table at my words, but it was the truth. He knew it. He knew I knew it. I wouldn't hide from it. I've worked against humanity and seek the opportunity to redeem the harm I've done through life as a guardian. But to be an effective guardian, I need to be compassionate of my assignments. I need to have empathy for their mortal oppositions and temptations. Temptations that I've never in my existence experienced. Michael listened without a word. Then he said, "You have thought this out very carefully, and you raise excellent points. Is there any other reason you wish to go?" He knew there was. I knew that with certainty, so I nodded. "I desire to experience a physical body." His gaze lowered to the table before looking back at me. "Jez, I've heard much about you from your instructors and in heavenly councils. I am pleased to see that you've overcome the darkness that brought you forth into existence. You show great promise, but sending you to Earth would be fraught with dangers. Human emotions are stronger, much stronger than you can imagine. Humans begin life as a baby, and from the moment they can think, they wrestle with these feelings, learning to keep them at bay. You would be at a huge disadvantage, especially as an empathia. You would be waylaid with feelings that are not your own, and you would have no barrier to keep them away from you." His words made my heart pound harder. He was going to say no. I would lose this chance, maybe my only chance. "No, I would remain in control, I promise." "Oh," he smiled. "You cannot promise something you have no control over." Salafiel cleared her throat. "We could send her with a guardian." "A guardian for a guardian?" Michael cocked his head. Barakiel's face lit up. "She's fond of another student at Yeshiv. He just received his first assignment on Earth. We could send her somewhere near him. He's a shade of light. He can be her barrier, siphon off some of the emotions she can't deal with." Michael considered that. It might work. Would this angel agree? It would be like having two assignments. "I think he would," Barakiel said, giving me a knowing look. My face warmed. Michael turned back to me. "Jez, I am in favor of you going to Earth and experiencing mortal emotions. However, you would not be going as a mortal. You would not get a physical body. If you were human, you would be susceptible to disease and death, not to mention the temptations of the flesh. Now is not the time for you to be tempted. As long as another angel agrees to be your guardian, I can make the arrangements for you to go to Earth under the pretense of being a mortal." "Would you like me to summon Malik?" Barakiel asked. We can find out now, if he agrees. Yes. Barakiel pulled out his tablet and sent off a message. I waited in silence, certain Malik would arrive any moment. I wasn't certain he would agree, even if Barakiel was. A knock came, and Cassiel rose to open the door. A moment later, Malik strode in, wearing black pants and a sweater with the Academy insignia on it. His eyes darted to me before scanning the room and landing on Michael. General Michael, he said, eyes widening. At ease, come in and sit, Malik. Malik did so, his eyes darting back to me. Malik, Michael said, swiveling in his chair to face him. I believe, along with the masters of the Academy, that Jezebethesat would benefit from living on Earth as part of her training to be a guardian. However, I am reluctant to send her alone because of her inexperience with human emotions and carnal temptations. Elder Master Barakiel told me you're already doing an assignment on Earth. Would you be willing to take her on as a secondary assignment, guiding her through the challenges of mortality? Malik's face had gone still. What do you mean? You mean she'll be mortal? No, not quite. She'll still be an angel, but we'll put her in a mortal state so she can pass as a teenage girl. She won't be able to be injured or get sick. She'll have a body? Not a physical one, no, just the appearance of one. Some of the stiffness went out of his shoulders, and I frowned. Why didn't he want that as badly as I did? How long will she be on Earth? How can I care for both her and my assignment? We'll place her in the same location as your assignment so you can watch over both of them. We wouldn't be apart anymore, I exhaled, sending a prayer toward Shemayim that Malik would agree. For how long? As long as we feel is necessary. Please, I thought, my body vibrating with the desire. I held my breath, certain Malik wouldn't deny me the thing I so desperately wanted. I stared at him and he finally met my eyes. A wordless connection passed between us, but I couldn't read Malik. He looked away, facing Archangel Michael. I'll do it. The words sighed out of him, and for the life of me, I couldn't understand his reluctance. Was he afraid I'd be a burden? Michael nodded. I'll discuss a few more logistics with the masters and the council, but I believe this plan will work. He turned to include me again. Since Malik has agreed, we can plan for you to go down during the second semester, the same as when he leaves for his assignment. If you haven't reached the understanding you desire at the end of the semester, you can choose not to move up with your peers and stay longer on Earth. There's also the chance that you'll reach an understanding and empathetic state much sooner than expected and be ready to return to regular study after a short amount of time. You are an empathia after all, Barakiel said. Feeling the human emotions will help you understand them quite quickly. I nodded. I'm fine with that, all of that. She doesn't know what she's agreeing to, Malik said. She's unfamiliar with the strength of human emotions. Michael turned his steady gaze on Malik. But you're not, and you will be there to help her. What if she doesn't want to come back? What if she enjoys what she finds of mortality and decides to stay forever? I won't, I said fiercely. At least I hoped I wouldn't. I want to be a guardian. I'll come back and finish my training so I can take on an assignment. That's the whole point to this. Do you accept this arrangement? Michael asked. Malik's eyes scanned my face. If it's what she wants. That slight smile crossed Michael's face again. He turned his gaze to me, but now his eyes held a warmth that hadn't been there before. Jez, is this arrangement agreeable to you? I let out a slow breath, trying to understand everything he meant. I won't get a body? No. I nodded, trying to conceal my disappointment. But what if a human touches me? I would create the illusion of a body for the sake of mankind. But you would have to be careful. The illusion would fall apart under scrutiny or too much contact, so there would be regulations you have to follow to maintain it. I wouldn't get a body, but I would get to experience things I'd thought I never would. What about my classes here at the Academy? I'll be a semester behind, right? You won't need to spend every moment on Earth. We can arrange for you to return at times for your classes, and some of your learning you can do from Earth. You should be able to stay on track. I took a deep breath and let it out, my heart racing. This was the closest chance I'd ever get, and I'd be with Malik, at least part of the time. I accept the agreement, I said, my pulse thundering in my throat. Sidi. Barakiel told me to continue with my classes while they made the arrangements, and that they would let me know when it was time. I turned to talk to Malik, but he left the room so fast I almost wondered if I'd imagined him being in there. Angela Thasat, Michael said, redirecting my attention. Yes, I held still while he appraised me. Be careful down there. He looked over at Barakiel. I don't think she's as inexperienced in love as you think. He doesn't recognize it, Barakiel said. She's unaware of what it is. Not for long. Michael nodded at me and then slipped from the room. Befaitu, Barakiel said, and I took that as my cue to leave. I hurried out of the room and checked the hallway for Malik. Where was he? My heart pounded in my throat, a certain knowledge in my soul that something was amiss. I pulled out my agenda and sent him a message. Malik? There was no response, but I didn't wait for one. I knew where he was. I shoved my agenda into my bag and scurried across the courtyard. The library loomed in front of me, and I yanked the door open, feeling the pressure change as it blew my hair from my face. I went straight to the back, grasping the ladder and wishing flight were allowed. Moments later, I reached the catwalk that led out to the overlook on the tower. An angel stood at the railings, his back to me, the white wings open and lifting in the gentle breeze that floated up from campus. Malik, I said. He didn't answer and didn't turn around. I approached him and stopped at the railing beside him. What's wrong? I asked. Feelings of uncertainty and worry swirled through my chest, leaving me confused and unsure. What did I have to be worried about? This was what I wanted. It's nothing, he said. I placed my hand beside his, my pinky finger close enough to touch his aura. The feelings of uncertainty intensified, and it dawned on me I was feeling his emotions, not mine. What are you afraid of? He turned to face me, his golden brown eyes bright in the sunlight. I don't know. No? I furrowed my brow. He shook his head. It leaves me unsettled, the thought of you on Earth. You've never been there. It's not always a nice place. I didn't correct him. I'd been to Earth, but not as I was now. I want to experience life there. Life here is so much better. How could I make him understand? I'll never get that chance, Malik. And I would have. If I'd been created by the Father, if I'd been there during the First War, I know I would have been a light lead. I would have chosen the first emissary. You get to skip it. His hands came out and gripped the edges of my wings on either side of me. There are dangers there that have nothing to do with the physical body. Spiritual dangers, moral pitfalls. His grip tightened, the feathers crinkling beneath his hands. What if you give in to them? What if you decide you don't want to be a guardian anymore? I vacillated between appreciation for his concern and annoyance at his lack of faith in me. But what did I know? I'd never been tested. Maybe I wasn't as strong as I thought. Don't you think I'd recognize a temptare if I saw one? His jaw tightened. Just because you know evil doesn't mean it can't tempt you. I tried to diffuse the situation with a smile. That's why you'll be there to help me. He released my wings and placed his hands on the railing, looking out again. Who am I to help anyone? Sometimes I feel so completely inadequate. I'm supposed to be guarding this boy when I didn't make such good decisions as a mortal either, and now I have to protect you. His wings fluttered beside me, and I eyed them, closing my hand into a fist to keep from reaching out and stroking the feathers. Do you resent that? No, I just want to keep you safe. I want to keep you here. Gray mixed with bright yellow flashed off him, his emotions broadcasting in his aura. What are you afraid of? I asked again. I didn't need a class or aura chart to read his feelings. Enshin. He whispered the word so quietly it was almost lost on the wind. I won't give in, I said, a flicker of irritation coursing through me. He turned around, his hands coming toward me and then balling into fists, just shy of touching me. I want to hold you. I want to fold you in my arms and feel you crushed against me. I want to caress your arms and your hands and your face without hurting you, and I can't. But we're going to Earth where you'll be mingling with humans who will get to touch you, even if it's only an illusion. I'd go for that illusion right now. Oh, I said, because I wasn't sure how to react to his confession. My heart soared, quickening at his words. It wasn't just me. Just as quickly, my heart sank. How fair was it that Malik was stuck with me, the one angel in all the universe who he couldn't touch? You don't have to, Banada, be with me, I said, not sure how to define the relationship, the connection between us. You could choose someone else, I would understand. You understand nothing. Malik gave a dry laugh, his face relaxing. No one chooses who they love, not on earth, not in heaven. But angels don't love like humans. We don't change our minds, we just are. Maybe the angelings, when they first arrive in Arcadia and are still thick with human concepts and human passions, might give in to a fleeting infatuation or lovesick crush. But angel hearts are not fickle. They are constant and unchanging. When we love, it's a forever thing. I wrinkled my nose, trying to understand the meaning behind his words. You can't choose? I suppose that's the one thing we don't have free will over. Our silly hearts do the choosing for us. And then I realized what else he was saying. Do you do? I couldn't bring myself to ask. Maybe I was being presumptuous. He waited, his eyes solemn on me. I swallowed back my question and said, "What's going on with your assignment? Sounds like you'll get to meet him soon." With Logan, it's one step forward, two steps back. Even with Raphael helping, Logan is getting into stuff it's hard to get out of. He's a good kid, but he's got hurts in his heart. He wants to mask them, cover them up. I'm worried the Tempter are also working on him. I'm seeing signs of depression, which makes him vulnerable. Have you seen any Tempter? Malik shook his head. No, but they would be foolish to reveal themselves when Raphael and I are nearby. We've always got our daggers on us. Would I have a dagger? I swallowed back the question. I'd given my dagger to Hasatan and lost my right to have one. That was on me. Maybe I'll be able to help. Maybe. He held his hand out, palm up, and I slid mine over the top, hovering a fraction of a millimeter from his skin. Warmth flowed between us, and I could imagine his hand wrapped around mine. I don't mean to be selfish. I want you to experience everything you want. I want you to be happy and safe. And with me, he gave a soft laugh. I understand your father a lot more. The desire to force you to stay here and force you to choose what I want fills me, all for your sake, and I would guarantee your happiness at the end, but that's not what the father wanted. I lifted my eyes to his, overwhelmed by a heady, thick feeling in my chest. A rush of energy flowed through my body, and my wings reacted by flapping several times. There were words I wanted to say to him, words on the tip of my tongue, but just out of reach. Across the quad, far beneath the library tower, the bell tolled in the clock tower. Malik slid his hand away and reached behind me, stroking my left wing where it neared my shoulder blade. The school day's over and you missed your afternoon class, he said. I'll be missing a lot of classes soon, but not yet. He buried his face in my feathers, inhaling. Don't be so eager. I kept quiet, feeling the warmth of his breath tickling the downy ends of my wings. I would keep my eagerness to myself.